Wow. Well, a very good evening to you, Tommy, and a very good morning to everyone here in Australia and New Zealand. So we got the great pleasure of having Tommy Dang join us from the Bay Area, and Kirk Mower. Kirk Mower is a Bay Area native, but he's relocated several years ago, and now he's based out of Hobart, Tasmania. So we'll get into intros in a second, but yeah, if you're interested in data orchestration and Mage, you should hopefully be in the right spot. We're doing a Mage webinar today, brought to you by Cloud Shuttle. But yeah, really excited to have Tommy and Kirk join us today because we've got the creator of Mage and someone who's making really good use of Mage as well. So it's going to be a fun and exciting webinar. So as always, really excited to hear from you folks. Any questions that you might have, thoughts. So please do pop through any questions as we're going along with this webinar. Also, definitely keen to sort of hear from, where you're dialing in from. It's these live streams can be quite international at times. So really keen to see, where you're dialing in from and what your Mage usage is like. So please do send through those comments and questions. Love to hear from you. Awesome. Well, let's get this party started. So my name's Peter Hanssens. I'm the founder and principal of Cloud Shuttle. It's a data engineering consultancy. Our side gig is running a bunch of meetups and the Data Eng Bytes conference. But really where we sort of shine is helping customers get up to speed with data engineering practices, doing data platform engineering, rolling out sort of new data engineering infrastructure. And a couple of years back, we stumbled across Mage as a data orchestration tool and started playing around with it a bit and just really loved it, the user experience, the productivity benefits, how easy it was to sort of not only get data pipelines built ourselves, but also how easy it was to sort of hand that over and upskill our clients in building sort of data engineering pipelines with Mage. So for us, it was a no-brainer to become a partner with Mage and start rolling out Mage quite successfully across Australia. So it's just been a lot of fun over the last couple of years. And here we are today with Tommy Dang, CEO of Mage. I had the great pleasure of meeting Tommy for, I think it was the Snowflake conference over in San Francisco. So that was a lot of fun. But Tommy, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you came to found such an awesome company, awesome data orchestration tool.
Yes, thanks for having me, Peter. It's great catching up again. It was really fun meeting for the first time back in, I think it was July. Yeah, July. So excited to be back digitally. So hello, everyone. My name is Tommy. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders here at Mage. I'm an engineer by trade. I worked at Airbnb for close to 6 years, and while there, worked on first, developer tools, data infrastructure, machine learning infrastructure, and working at a very large company. Actually, was early there when we did Airflow and saw that really grow and expand, supporting small teams and then big teams, and then eventually it's just becoming really a really big piece of their infrastructure and seeing the pros and cons of it all. And so after Airbnb, had to think about, okay, how can we make pipelines, building just pipelines, whether they're data pipelines, machine learning pipelines, how to make it easier. Data engineering it's an interesting role. It's been around for a long time, and it actually, they're the unsung heroes because unlike client front-end engineers, iOS engineers, the UI ninjas, they build product, and so you see it, you feel it, it's really close to the users, but there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that just folks folks just assume that just the data should just be there, right? Like user data should be clean, it should be up to date, it should be in all the places. If I have 30 different SaaS tools, I expect the dashboards to be up to date all the time. But like, who's doing all of that? Funny story in data engineering. So we had the role of data engineering at Airbnb for quite some time, and then it was in 2018 we decided, we don't need data engineers. Every software engineer will just do the data work for their team. A year and a half later, we brought on a really awesome CTO, and then he was like, "Where all the data engineers go?" And so we hired them all back. We tried to. So it just goes to show that even if you're a giant company, you still need it. But then even if you're a small company, even in today's world, we've seen companies with no data engineering, or at least that type of role, and they really struggle, especially with all the AI out today, more data, more sources, etc. And so yeah, we started Mage in 2020 and started off as an open source, and we decided to go with a managed version because we came to the realization that although we made it really easy to host, we felt that we could serve the community and other companies a lot easier and faster if we cut out the part where they need to set it up themselves. So that brings us to today.
Yeah, Mage Pro, which you're having a lot of success with, Kirk. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Kirk, your backstory, and sort of how you came to be a Mage Pro user.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've been in the applications and data space for most of my career. Spent most of my career as a consultant, and wanted to move back down to Tassie some years ago, and because I've been here working for the Antarctic Division many years ago. So I came down here, and now the data manager at Solstice Energy. We're electricity retailer and also run the gas network here. So yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of data over in the past, and like Tommy says, you always have to move data around, and it's almost like the unsung hero of a lot of application development, right? And you hear the big boys say there's no AI without data and stuff like that, and you can roll your eyes, but it's totally true, right? So it's really basically starting, and again, when we look at the data engineering landscape, more recently, people have always used SQL, right? SQL turned 50 last year, right? So we've always had SQL. SQL is a great tool, and it's had staying power. But again, we also see people moving more and more into tools like Python and into data frames. Again, having used Airflow, where you have to write a long bit of sequential code, to get a directed acyclic graph at DAG, worked great. It was great. It's still a good tool, but it can be cumbersome, and it has a high learning curve, and it's not really, you have to do the whole thing at once, right? Like any SQL code, or any sequential code rather, you need to write these very large scripts that can become unwieldy. I came across Mage. Actually had, Tommy had to remind me that I actually talked to him about, before 7 years ago in my previous role, when I was looking for like machine learning tools and that for the resources industry. And I think that's kind of where they started out with Mage, and then they've come back down to, the core data engineering stuff as well as that machine learning. So that's great stuff. But the good thing about Mage is that this block paradigm, right? You can actually, you have a piece of code, you have a block, and that's going to perform a certain function, right? You have a block, you can grab your data in that block, and you got it. And then you go to a next block, and then you do something with that data, but it persists, right? So you've got a block, you've done your query on a set, like a CTE or whatever you want to call it, but it's there in Mage, and then you can manipulate it however you want to your heart's content, and then you can push it back down to the database. So in terms of getting, that sort of sequential orchestration, Mage has both the code first ability. You can write in SQL, you can write in Python, and that also has the GUI, the visual graphical user interface, which allows you to be able to see how the code blocks are progressing through the pipeline. And that's, really powerful. And it's also really good for people, especially if you're bringing in, people who have some chops in data, but maybe not programming. So, it's been a really great tool for us to sort of to get, to move our data and do the transformation tier, really efficiently.
Yeah, I love that, Kirk, and really great to sort of, have you on here talking about your experience with Mage. I love how Mage is kind of like democratizing, if you will, sort of like data orchestration, because typically it's kind of a pretty code heavy. You really need to know what you're doing when you're building out data pipelines and stuff like that. But Mage definitely, it feels like it's lowering the barrier to entry. We're able to sort of get more data folks into the data pipeline building game, which is like another wonderful side effect from Mage's like awesome user experience. So
yeah,
I guess
I think it's more. I think it's more forgiving too, right? Because you can run a block, like just in the block, right? You don't have to run the whole pipeline. You're just running the block, like to make sure you're getting the right data back, and then you get this notebook view too to see the data that's coming back. Yeah. So, like you say, it's not poke and hope. Like if you're writing a big DAG and you go, oh, pray, really run, you can actually see, before you go through the whole thing, you can test the individual parts, and that's, that really takes away that fear, that anxiety around, I've put all this work into this thing and is it going to run? No, you already know because you've run each individual block. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
No, it's a really good interruption, actually. Yeah, I'm hoping that Tommy actually will do a quick little demo to take us through some of that functionality. I love the actual sort of live debugging that you can do in Mage and stepping through the data frame and stuff like that. That's one of the killer features in my opinion. But yeah, so let's do a bit of a Mage AI overview. I could probably do it myself, but we've got the man himself, Tommy Dang, in the house. So Tommy, tell us what's this whole Mage AI thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I jump into that, actually, Kirk and I, before we even met, we actually went to the same school. And then it is funny story how we met. I remember clearly, it was 9 p.m. our time. I was actually at Thomas's, our growth. I was at his house, and then we were just catching up. And then I said, "Oh, can I use your office? I have a call with Kirk." And so we were on a call for an hour. I think that was in 2021. And then we just stayed in touch. And then I think a year later, we're working together on open source Mage. So funny story, small world. And you listed some of the really great features, but I would say, I guess actually if we start with some core design principles, there's four core design principles. One is easy developer experience. That's behind everything. And so when we think about how you code, how you use the interface, how you set everything up, it has to have an easy developer experience. And that means, the pros and cons of it. The con is we don't have it doesn't come with services or dependencies on, let's say, like Celery, Redis, some background queue, things like that. It's just one Docker container, and then Docker container, it's actually just running Python, right? If you install it via PyPy, it's just doing a web server. And so very simple, very easy. Now, if you want to scale up, then we think of Lego pieces, just like how you would code. So, okay, you want to scale up, you could add optional Postgres URL. You don't need it, use a SQLite, or you could optionally add XYZ. So that's the easy developer experience. And then the next one is that it's engineering best practices built in. And so that means, okay, how do we dry things up? A lot of the features, the way you use Mage, we really think about reusability. They say, the best engineers are lazy. You don't want to keep redoing the same thing over and over. And then even if you have various logic, where can you dry it up? Where can you refactor so that you can just use 80% and then control it via variables, et cetera, et cetera. And then scaling made easy. We made it so that it's very easy to horizontally scale and vertically scale Mage. And Kirk brought up blocks. And so when we think about blocks, think of them as just individual tasks and individual files as well. They are individual files. They run separately. They fail separately, unrelated to other things. And so that makes it very easy to dedicate single resource to each block runs as they run, and then horizontally scale that infinitely. And then last one is data is a first-class citizen, meaning everything's about data. And the way you code, the way whenever you run a block, and Kirk mentioned this, the output is some data that could be unstructured, it could be structured, and then that gets passed around. And so you automatically, every block is trying to do something, perform some logic on some input, whether it is from other blocks or if you're fetching from somewhere, and then it's always trying to output something so that downstream blocks can use it, etc. So yeah, those are some of the key features. And I would say the last one would be, when we think of pipelines, actually in today's world, you have data integration, right? You got your Fivetrans, you got your Stitches, trying to pull data from external sources to internal systems. And then you have your transformation pipelines. That's very broad. It can just do something with the data. And then you have pipelines, streaming pipelines, always on. How we see the world is they're all pipelines. Do you need to learn 3 different frameworks? Do you need to buy 3 different tools to do this? We don't believe so. And so how we design Mage is they are all pipelines. They all have blocks. Some are just always on. Some are pulling from different sources, like a streaming source, right? So batch is, you just keep running the batch in an hourly interval or anything like that. And so how we designed it is, as long as you know how to build one type of pipeline, you know how to build all the pipelines. And the same tools are available to you, Python, SQL, YAML, etc. And some of the use cases mentioned that already. Actually, use cases, we should just ask the pro Kirk some use cases.
Well, Kirk, what are some of the use cases for Mage?
Come off mute here. Well, I mean, yeah, asking me, I mean, it's good. It's like you say, it's you're able to call, functions, and you're able then to stitch things together that can happen concurrently, or they can happen sequentially, or you can also, like as Tommy says, you can have things sitting there streaming. So you can have lots of different types of pipelines, and then you can run them on schedules, or you can run them on triggers, on event triggers, so you've got a lot of different things to do, right? That you can pull out of that tool bag, right? And let's say you wanted to, again, we're living in 2025, right? So it's because it's agnostic. It's not, it's not baked into Snowflake. It's not baked into Databricks. It's not baked into tool of choice, right? So you're able then to say, right, I can actually then route my procedures to the proper engine of choice, right? So then this is saying, picking the right compute engine for the right job, right? So you've done let's say you run some feature selection in Mage, and you've modeled that up, and then you could then send that job to, whatever's going to be the best engine for you, whether that's going to be a Spark engine or whether that's going to be a, PyTorch or something. So you can actually then do that all within Mage. So you do the data prep, and you're doing your DQ and everything there. And then you're actually then starting, again, we're in a world of AI, but, AI, you can also, again, we're all using AI to write pieces of code these days anyway. But again, you can then take those pieces of code and orchestrate them, like you want to do some stochastic gradient descent or something like that, for example. You can kick that sort of thing off. And then that data would go back into your storage point of choice, right? So then you're able then to say, right, I don't have vendor lock-in. I can be more agnostic, and I can then also then make those guys compete for my dollar, right? Because they all want you to give them all of your money and your firstborn child. That's fine. We understand that's their business. But different tools are better at different things, right? Just like people, we're better at different things. So then by giving yourself the ability to have a choice on where you run your compute, where you store your data, say Iceberg, right? Yeah, that's really powerful, because then you're able then to, decouple yourself from, the goose stepping vendor land of, I don't want to bash anyone in particular, but that tends to be the hearts and minds thing that they tend to run, right? Every vendor, if you've ever sit down with a vendor, who's at the center of the universe? Them. And then all the spokes are other people, right? And that's just, that's the business of software sales, for the last 25 years at least, right? They all want to put themselves at the hub of the universe. But our universe now is we have a lot more choice. We can go to AWS, we can go to, we can run up a, whatever, we can run stuff on-prem, right? Because we're seeing that sort of thing. We're seeing that pendulum swing back to on-prem a lot now. So again, you have that flexibility by not having to have your ETL orchestration and, tool that you're actually going to be doing these things from, not embedded in one of these other systems.
Also, Kirk brought up something that reminded me about the vendor, the agnostic thing. When we were designing Mage, we wanted to design it in a way where you can easily move off or into Mage. So that was one. And then two is you don't have to read a whole manual to just get started. Actually, quite a lot of folks don't even read the docs. We put a lot of effort into it, but quite a lot of folks don't read the docs. And I think Jeff Bezos said the best customer support is when they never have to talk to you, right? And so we love talking to the developers, but it would be best if they could just use it without having to read anything. And so if you ever use Mage, you'll just see that you are just writing functions. And the only DSL, domain-specific language, is a decorator, but you just remove that decorator and you can run that anywhere. We actually have a company that had over 100 Lambda functions in AWS, and they actually were able to easily just make those pipelines or blocks inside of Mage, and it just worked. So we definitely wanted to make sure folks can move in and out easily into Mage and not have to write those long, like Rick said, the long Airflow. Have you seen someone try to migrate off of Airflow? It's pretty hard, right? You gotta you need like 10 AI models to help you.
Yeah, you reminded me of another story too. I remember when I was a young developer, I remember my boss taking me down to this downstairs room, and we go in there, and half the room was filled with Oracle 8i manuals, and he had read all of them, right? he had read them all, and I was like, whoa, yeah, it was pretty daunting. But I mean, yeah, you're right. You can incrementally learning is fine. You can't digest everything at once, especially when everything's, the world's moving so fast. Like you say, we're getting, do I go to Cloud 3.7? Do I go to, ChatGPT 4? Do I go to DeepSeek? It's like, you're constantly barraged with, different techniques. But again, if the idea is that you can get something that works for you and work it. All right. And that you're going to be able to change it. And when you change it, you need to be able to, you can do that quickly, and it's flexible and pliable, right? You don't have to rewrite, 10,000 lines of code. You just change a block or two.
Yeah. And just finally, I'd like to add that just to add on to that point, Tommy, around the Lambda functions, we've seen a lot of data engineering companies struggle with, like, say, step functions, and just being able to sort of testing and debugging step functions. We've done a lot of migrations from step functions to Mage, and like data engineers have reported really awesome developer experience and traceability and monitoring and alerting off that whole process of migrating to Mage. It's just a lot easier to sort of step through those blocks, especially the dynamic blocks. I don't know whether you're going to take us through that one today, Tommy, but and yeah, again, reiterating the fact that you can run Mage in the cloud, you can run it on-prem, highly portable. And another thing is the Slack AI that you've got to help answer questions, phenomenal. As well as like some of our recent customers, we've had a blockchain customer using Mage, sending all of their data into ClickHouse. We've got a lot of customers using Mage to send their data to Iceberg, to Snowflake. Lots of really good, use cases, and all Australian companies. So, there's plenty of really good use cases and applications. Sky's the limits as far as I'm concerned. It's such a great tool. So, Kirk, we sort of briefly touched on the customer success story with Solstice and how Solstice has leveraged Mage to help build out their data platform. You've got Snowflake there. You've got a bit of Iceberg as well. Full disclosure, we at Cloud Shuttle have been helping you out, I believe, Kirk, to help build out that data platform with Mage. But how did you find you've got a mixture of a bit of SQL Server around the place and a few bunch of bit of on-prem, bit in the cloud on AWS and things like that. How did Mage help you navigate all of that sort of distributed data infrastructure and sort of bring it all together into Snowflake?
Yeah, I mean, when we started out, we did, we're looking for a way, to do it. Yeah, you mentioned, we have some tools in the shop. We have like Snowflake, right? You've got dynamic tables there. We run some of those as well. We've got, we do have some data in Iceberg because we see that as the way, that's a good way to go, at the present time. Yeah. And really we did a project, I think we started about not quite 2 years ago now, but it was, just did a specification selection around the tools that are out there, right? I mean, we say Airflow, I mean, it's really Astro, which, is the commercialized version of Airflow, which is, it's quite a good product, I think. We looked at Mage and we looked at some of the, graphical user interface tools. Like, I don't even know the names of them anymore, but, when you put a block and you're drawing something together, what we find is that, the graphical interface tools are fine to get you used to the paradigm, but then, you really need to get down and cut some code, right? If you're going to do any, you really need to tweak some stuff, because a lot of the pre-wrapped stuff is, it's great for well-defined corralled functions that, you do that, but you sometimes, you need to break it out and do some of your own things, right? Because, everything doesn't fit perfectly into a square hole or a round hole or a triangular hole. So you need to be able to write some code, right? As and that code can scare people, right? And we're aware of that, right? People think, Python or SQL or, I mean, but again, that's the thing that, starting to break that down, is I always want to just show people what's running. So you do sort of demonstrations or inspections. I mean, that's really good, right? Because then it takes that sort of, that sort of scary thing around coding away from people, because you're just really writing the instructions for the machine. And as we see now for, AI, that's really well apparent, right? So it used to be that, you have to know everything to code. You'd be a guru, which I've been a guru in certain things in my life, but now as long as you know what questions to ask, so you can get those answers a lot faster. It's not a Google search anymore. You're actually powering an AI and you're having an intelligent conversation with somebody who knows what you're talking about. So that's great, right? So anyway, so you have a coding tool. We went to that. We looked at Mage versus, the other things, and we thought that Mage had that good mix. Mage has the graphical user interface of the block, so we can see the flow, and we can also then, get down to code. So you're like, well, that's all you need. That's what we need, right? So we did do that. We've gone and, built out a bunch of data structures, for, our businesses, which actually, are able then to run on schedules and do that sort of stuff. And some things are streaming. We're also pulling in things like XML files from the market regulator, for example, parsing those, putting those in the right place. And we're pulling stuff off of people's SharePoint directories, because some people still work with spreadsheets, and that's just the reality of the world. But again, that's the thing. We need to integrate that into our, common data repository, which is, a data warehouse, even though some people don't like that term, but that's what it is. So then we warehouse that data, and then we're able then to move it around to suit, right? So if we need to do some other analysis on it, or if we want to, do something, once it gets really big, right? That's when you sort of run into those barriers. And that's when we start to look at other structures like iceberg and things like that. Once the data starts to get large, like if we have 5-minute interval data, for example, or things like that. And then so we can then choose, because we're not, we can try different things out too. So we can also drive it by experimentation. Oh, let's jam it into iceberg and see, right? It's just a few lines of code, right? And then, or another block, or let's push it back to here and see how it works. So you're able then you have that agility then to move very quickly to evaluate your options, right? Instead of having to be, some sort of TOGAF architectural,
For sure, 100%.
To say this is going to work. You just go for the results, right? You go for action.
Touch on Kirk. I wanted to touch really quickly on one particular use case that you had at Solstice.
Yep.
With regards to, like, you talked about the streaming job, polling SQS and stuff like that, which is a great feature, but also reading those files from SharePoint, the Excel files of, they're human generated Excel files. So they contain errors from time to time and they break and things like that. You talk about being able to step through in the Mage code blocks and sort of showcase kind of the issues with the Excel files and things like that. But also the alerting and monitoring the Slack alerts and stuff like that when pipelines break, I think is quite a powerful tool, especially when interfacing with data that's oftentimes less reliable than you'd like it to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Because we're working with some sort of raw data. So I'm in the resources space. We have data for like consumption, and we have a billing data and stuff. So in gas and electricity, but we need to run some calculations around that. Like gas is a good example. So you're delivering quantities of gas in cubic meters, but because of the physics of that, you need to know how much energy is in that. To know how much energy is in that, you need to grab from the SCADA system, what we call heating value. And then you need to do a calculation using that. So we use Mage to orchestrate all of that. So when we get the data in, then we run the calcs over that to get the right energy against the billing, against everything. And then we push that up. So we saved that up. We just did that project alone, they had 2.5 FTEs working on that job full time. And now we've just automated it. So it's like, boom, done. So that's a good feeling. I mean, I'm not trying to I'm not saying we're getting rid of people, but there's other things for them to do, right? Because this was sort of a thankless drudgery task of pain and suffering that they had to do to cobble this stuff together like 2 weeks a month, right? And it's like, no, we just run it through now from woe to go. And if we don't have some things like these heating values, you're right, then we alert ourselves and say, dude, you got to load that up. And we know we can, and it also points us to places that we can improve that process, right? Because we've got data coming out of SCADA and some human has to load that. And we're seeing that those aren't timely in some cases. So we're saying, okay, well, we got to put the work in to automate that as well so that we can onboard that data, quicker. If you want to see the end result of the calculation quicker, right?
Yeah.
So
the end result is that Mage saves you both time and money. But obviously those people can be put to really good use elsewhere and stuff like that. So,
and it helps us conceptually too when we talk to the business, right? Because then we're able to tell them exactly what is late, right? Saying, because that thing is late, that piece of data that I need for that calculation is late, your dashboard is late, right? For example. So we need to fix that. And that becomes very simple for them to understand that, right? And then you can then you can devolve into the technical stuff of how you're going to do it later.
Yep. Sounds awesome. Thank you, Kirk. That's an awesome customer success story. So really appreciate you sharing that with us today, Kirk. So Tommy, Mage versus competitors, we talked about sort of comparisons with Airflow and other competitors, but sort of we've listed out some of the sort of main use cases. I think, like people talk about Airflow now supporting streaming, but that's like a custom plugin. But you mentioned that sort of like, I guess Mage has these three concepts out of the box, just ready to go. And it's. Did you want to walk us through just really quickly, sort of some of these comparisons and the reasons why sort of Mage just works and is so easy to onboard?
Yep. Yeah. We think about our key differentiators based off of our core design principles. So the first one was the easy developer experience, and that is having the GUI, that part about being able to build it really easily, not having any DSL, domain-specific language, things like that. And so that's a core part of a differentiator. And so we aim to be easier to use, easier to learn. And then there's data as a first-class citizen. Everything from around the whole block paradigm that Kirk mentioned, that's quite unique. Everything's a file. Everything outputs some data output, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third one would be around scaling made easy. And so that's just choosing which services to use and not use and making it very configurable. And the last piece around those three concepts that you mentioned, making that one concept and just three use cases of a data pipeline. And that's a quite differentiation between how other tools approach it.
Sounds amazing. And so Mage versus other competitors outside of like Airflow, what would you say is some of the USPs of Mage?
Yes, absolutely. So we make it really easy to scale any volume of workload. It could be huge spikes. It doesn't matter. You just write your code, and we'll run it, and we'll figure out how much memory it needs, how fast it needs to run, things like that. You don't need to worry about, okay, where do I save all this data? How do I or how can I replay all this? Let's say you have a pipeline. We make it super easy to backfill. Even if you don't need a backfill, you need a rerun, you need a retry, you need to debug, very easy. You could hop in, see the logs, fix it, and then without having to rerun the entire pipeline, you just rerun that single block with that error. So it makes going from development to production just super fast and iterate super fast.
Nice,
and
nice.
The cost savings is huge. So we have folks who first they adopt Mage because they want to just sync data. So then they go, oh, I don't need to use this other tool. And then they go, oh wow, I can run my DBT models in here. Okay, so I'm going to move all my DBT cloud models in here. Oh wait, I can do my streaming in here. Okay, so I'm going to move my streaming pipeline from X to Mage, and then they end up saving tons of money.
Yeah, like one of the questions that I get oftentimes is because it's just like Mage is this new company, so it must be just for like startups. It's not really battle tested in production settings, right? And it's like I keep having to remind folks, it's like, no. Tommy's ex Airbnb. He worked at like hyperscale, right? Like this is not just some Mickey Mouse tool, right? Like this is actually ready for prime time.
Yes. So there are some really big companies. One of them has, I think, like 100 workspaces. They have hundreds of developers on there. It's their central data platform. And so that's just one of them. And we do anonymous tracking on open source, and we make it opt out. I think about 20% of people opt out, which is totally fine. There's about, I would say, like over 3,000 or so that we have identified of companies that run it, right? And there's millions of runs. We don't track every single run. We track in aggregate, but there's tens of millions of runs a month, and so it's been used quite a bit and quite battle tested. And new, I guess, we've been around for 4 years. I guess that's new, right? I don't know what's new these days, but we've been doing this for a long time. And not just that, like you said earlier, myself and my co-founder, we were at Airbnb for quite a long time, and this is just all we did. All we did is data pipelines for life.
Yeah, I know. I was just quite shocked at how much like enterprise features that you've got baked into the product. Because I often like I jump on like sales calls and speak to prospective clients, and they're like, not too sure whether I can sort of bet my data platform on Mage and things like that. But it's just like, well, actually, like these folks, are actually quite heavily utilized, and as we could see from Kirk, just, you know, all of the features that helps him to solve some pretty gnarly data engineering problems. And, you know, oftentimes the most gnarly data engineering problems are where there's a human in the loop and, you know, data's getting sort of manipulated incorrectly or something like that. And, you know, and, you know, like Mage just has a whole bunch of tooling to help solve those kind of challenges. So that is, it's great that you were able to sort of provide. I'm going to just take that snippet from you about the 3,000 customers. I'm like, okay, 3,000 customers, tens of millions of pipelines. Is that big enough scale for you? There you go.
There's, I forgot when there's like one time this company did, I don't know, like 100, I forget, it's 100 something thousand, I think, block runs or something. So it can technically horizontally scale infinitely, as long as you can throw money at it, of course, right? So yeah, you can have a lot.
Awesome. Well, we've spoken a lot about it. Now we want to see it in action, Tommy. So what have you got in store for us today?
Yes, I'll quickly just go around over building a new pipeline, adding a block, running the block, and then just setting up a trigger. I'll try to keep it short, and so I'll be blazing through it. But yeah, I just want to share, for folks to get a feel of Mage and how magically easy it is to use.
Love it. Let's do this.
Awesome.
Take it away, Tommy.
Awesome. So here, you see a bunch of pipelines, and the main thing you do in Mage is you build pipelines. So we're just going to quickly build a pipeline. You can have a bunch of templates, company templates, et cetera, but we're just going to build a basic one. And we alluded it to earlier, where you have three types of pipelines. You have your streaming, your data integration, and the standard batch is the most typical one. So we'll just go ahead and create that. And so you have that concept of blocks, and not only can you add, like a SQL block or a Python block, right? So you got SQL, select one like this, and then you have your Python block. We're all about code as little as possible. That they say that line of code you don't have to write is the line of code you don't have to debug. And so then you have pre-built templates. If you want to fetch from some data warehouse, data lake, etc. Or let's say your team has written code already. So you just, I don't know if I have any. Fine, right here. So let's say your team already wrote some code. Why rewrite that? Just go ahead and add it to your your pipeline. And this is where how we designed it, the block paradigm comes in. Each of these are its individual file, and then your pipeline is represented by a simple YAML file, and that YAML file, it just references the block file. So then whoever created Load Titanic, maybe it's a standard loader for all your pipelines. And so there's already one file and 10 other pipelines just reference it. And so then, we could run this like this, and then you can see the output just like that in a preview of it. And, oh, that looks good. Oh, wait, that doesn't look right, et cetera, et cetera. And then, I could do maybe, I think this is the syntax. I can do that. Oh, cool. Awesome. The results look good. And then, instead of having to read a manual to be like, oh, how do I connect these? How do I, make them work and run in order? Well, no problem. You can just use the GUI, drag and drop, and then now I have this Load Titanic is passing its data down to this Radiant Surge, right? So then how's the data added? So then we could just do this. It comes in as a positional argument. So we can do return. I can't even type it, df like that. And then maybe you want to do let's say. Let's do lowercase all the pandas data columns. If you want to just skip writing code and have it do it all yourself, you just do this and then write the code, run it, etc. And so that's the building experience, really easy. And now you're ready to automate it. So then you can go to your triggers and you can create multiple triggers. This is where, again, don't repeat yourself comes into play. So if we go back to this pipeline, let's say this loads data for users across the world. Okay, so then my pipeline, I want to load data. Maybe there's a variable called country equals keyword args get country, right? Like this. And then in this block, I'm interpolating it. That way, what if you want to use this block? I'm not hard coding the country. And then I go to triggers and I can create 1, 2, 3, as many triggers as I want. Triggers can be ran on a schedule. It can be daily, hourly, every minute, whatever. It could also be triggered from an API. So then let's say I do, this one's USA. Let's say frequency is monthly. And then the variable country, I'll do USA. So like that, save this. But then I want to do the same thing, but what I'll do is I'll create one for Australia, and then I would do a different variable for that as well, and so on and so on. So then I got one pipeline and unlimited variations, and I simply control it via the variables. And so that's the building experience, and I could spend forever on this, but I think that covers just the initial part.
Yeah, no, I think that was an awesome live demo and really rapid. It's just, you just built an end-to-end data pipeline in like what, 2 minutes?
Yeah.
That's the sort of user experience that we see, and yeah, that's it's so awesome. It's fantastic, and this is running live. I think Kirk pointed out in the comments. So awesome to see. Was there anything else that you wanted to add on here, Tommy?
Oh yeah, of course. I thought you did RAS. So let's say we created that run already, and so 20% of the time you build pipelines, but the rest of the time you gotta manage, you gotta update it, you gotta maintain it, right? So we have built-in monitoring view. There's also alerting. You get alerted via Slack, email, text message, whatever you want. You can have it specific to the team, etc. And then you go to see your runs like this. Okay, so I see, okay, this one's done, this one's canceled. Maybe I want to see which one's failed. So I could do, okay, let's look at failed. Oh, that one failed. Okay, let's see why it failed. You can click into it, and then you can see, okay, this one cleared, this one failed. So then you can go into the logs, and then you'll see whatever logs. This pipeline doesn't exist because I deleted it. But let's say it did exist, you would see the errors, and then from here, you'd be able to, actually, let me go back. Then you could just rerun that single block of code. So let's say this one, for example. I can go here, and then, okay, this one failed. So then I can say retry incomplete blocks, and so on and so on. And so it makes it really easy. I could have just jumped into that single file as well, change that without being worried I'm going to break everything else, and then rerun that single block. And then if you wanted to backfill, there's also all that backfilling and things like that. But yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to share.
That is awesome. Well, it's probably a good moment to just take any questions if anyone's got any coming through from the live stream. I think you're just showcasing for us, Tommy, a bit of a DAG, directed acyclic graph of the blocks, is it?
All the pipelines. So this is just a view of all the pipelines and how they're dependent. So like this one is triggering this pipeline, this one's triggering this other one, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just another view for, let's say you want to know how all your pipelines are related, right? So these just run by themselves, et cetera, et cetera. And then if you want to see upcoming runs, you can see upcoming runs there. A lot of,
Yeah. So you've got like, data coming in from an SFTP and things like that. So, and those pipelines can be quite brittle. So all of the monitoring and alerting, I think that's kind of what we were touching on with you, Kirk, around sort of like the monitoring and alerting being a really big value add for you at Solstice Energy, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, being able to have everything in one place and monitor it is fantastic. Yeah, and I just want to also point out too that we've gone from, you can run this, you can still run their Docker image of this, and you can get going. And they also have Mage Pro, which we've transitioned to, which allows you to just do it as SaaS and not have to worry about all that infrastructure stuff as well. Which that seems to be working really well for us too.
I love this. This is some AI feature, Tommy, that just kind of debugs your code and gives you the hints and stuff to fix it.
Not just the hints, it'll just do it. It'll just fix it for you.
Love it.
Yeah, there's a lot of AI features. I could do a whole session on this, but we use AI a ton to we wouldn't be Mage AI if we didn't use AI ourselves. So we use a ton of AI to actually build Mage, and then we also build a lot of AI features in Mage as well to make our lives easier. So you could generate entire just code blocks. What I love demoing this is we had this blog post, and we literally just copied the entire blog post, right, like the content, and then we stuck it in here. We said, okay, write a pipeline. Like, this is a prompt. Basically, just write a pipeline that follows this blog post, and it's basically walking you through accuracy, precision, recall. And so the model will read it. It will figure out what steps to do, how the steps are connected, and then it will. So look, 1 out of 6. Okay, so then it goes. Let's see. So this is how it designed the pipeline: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it will start writing each block. Right. So that was 2 out of 6. And then at the end of it, it might take some time. You can just create it, and it'll create all 6 blocks. And then it'll create, like I said, you have the pipeline metadata that controls that shows you how what's dependent on what. It'll just connect all of that. Yeah, and then there's a lot of things where you could like write the code in line, have it fixed for you, things like that.
That is phenomenal. So good, so good. You like the cursor of data orchestration tools, right?
Yeah. So I think data engineering, you're working on a single block, right? So you're either loading the data from something and then doing something, or you have the data ready, or you're doing something with it. So it's really scoped. It's really focused. And so I feel like AI really shines there. How to do some UI, where I use AI for, again, a lot of things, and it struggles with a lot of things, but for some reason, you needed to do something with Pyro, Iceberg, whatever. It just does it really, really well, right? Because it's super focused. Yeah. And you, as a data engineer, you know what you need that code to do, right? So just load this and then leave off these tables, dedupe it, automatically infer things, right? And so I feel like coding with AI really shines in data engineering.
Yeah, because the scheme is there. A lot of information is there coming through from the tooling and stuff like that, which makes a lot of sense. Like AI shines with a lot of context, doesn't it? So that is phenomenal. So you've just built a really cool data pipeline with a bit of prompt engineering, right?
Yeah, look at that. And then it just worked. And if it doesn't, well, look, if it doesn't work, okay, well, what's wrong? I'm too lazy to read the error. You fixed it for me. Yeah. So just fix it.
Yeah. What's the one of the 3 sort of characteristics of a good engineer? What is it? Is it laziness? Is definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Love it. Love it. Love it. Cool. Well, we could have fun for the rest of the day with this, but I think we'll have to end the live stream at some point. So this is super cool, super exciting. So thank you so much, Tommy, for taking us through all of this sort of stuff. But to quickly wrap it up, Cloud Shuttle, the company that I run, we're officially a Mage implementation partner in ANZ. We're super honored, to be an implementation partner in Australia and New Zealand. We're super honored also to have one of our customers, Kirk Mower from Solstice Energy, with us today. So really do appreciate it, Tommy Dang. Thank you. And thank you to the rest of the Mage AI team as well for helping us out in becoming an implementation partner, and to all of our clients and customers that have trusted us to bring these implementations to a successful conclusion. How Cloud Shuttle can help implement Mage? Obviously, we can help out with the assessment and planning, integration and migration. If you've got some data sources, or you've got your data pipelines in an existing orchestration tool such as Airflow, definitely can help you to sort of do that migration across to Mage. And then also we've got sessions where we can do training and enablement, things like the sessions today where sort of Tommy took us through how easy it is to build a data engineering pipeline. With Mage, we can do that with your team in-house or online. So that's totally cool as well. An ongoing partnership if you need some support in an ongoing fashion, managed service agreement, that sort of jazz. We're always happy to help. We want to see you succeed, just as Kirk and Solstice Energy have succeeded with Mage as well. So we've got, I think, one question. Well, no, it's a comment. Anthony Eager just said, thanks for organizing the stream too. You're most welcome, Anthony. So thanks for popping by and listening in. Really appreciate it. But yeah, before we sort of finish up today, wanted to say, well, Tommy, Mage Pro, you can try it for free, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're confident that as long as you can experience the magic and see how easy it is to use, you'll fall in love with it. It's absolutely risk free, and you get almost all the features, and you can run, schedule things like that.
Awesome. Okay, and so obviously you can schedule a demo with the team, and or you can reach out to us at Cloud Shuttle here in Australia and New Zealand, and schedule in some time with us to sort of get you set up and showcase how you can be successful as well. Would love to get on a discovery call to learn about some of your pain points and how we can help you be successful. So that's enough of that. Just wanted to sort of finish up there and say a massive thank you to Tommy Dang, CEO of Mage, and Kirk Mower, data manager at Solstice Energy. Any parting thoughts, folks?
I'd just say give it a bash, right? Tommy's there saying try it for free. A demo is great, but get your hands on it and see how you go. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Great thoughts. What's your thoughts, Tommy?
There's really no risk at all. We don't ask for any payment or anything like that. You just use it right off the bat. And then only, after you're satisfied and you actually experience it end to end. And also what we learned is, engineers, they typically don't want to talk to someone immediately. And so we totally understand that. And that's why we want you to try it out, things like that. But we always try to make ourselves just always available via Slack, email, Google form, every form known to mankind, right? We put links everywhere because what we want to do is make sure that you can, whatever your use case is, I'm pretty sure we could solve for, but that might not be super apparent until you've used it a little bit, right? And so to skip all of that, we like to chat with you for even five minutes because you just tell us like, hey, I'm trying to do this. And like, oh yeah, totally. This is how you do it. Bam. And so that's why we want to chat with you. But if you can just use it on your own and you don't need us, no worries.
Yeah, I don't think those guys. I don't think they sleep. These guys they're on all the time.
Yeah, they're amazing customer support. That's another really great use case, like a point in case with Mage is the customer service is phenomenal. It's really the Airbnb of data engineering tools, right?
Yeah, we always wanted to be help globally, right? We didn't want to be a Silicon Valley company or just a San Francisco tech company. And this is part of coming from Airbnb, right? They operated in almost all the countries, and so we actually have developers from over around 120 different countries, and it's really cool because it just shows. Yeah, it breaks down working across borders. It just breaks down barriers, and it just shows us how much alike all of us are. We all struggle with the same problems. We all have the same interests, things like that. And everyone's super smart and very kind and hardworking. And so it's been a really awesome way to also just connect with folks around the world.
Yeah, no, that's couldn't say it better myself. So really appreciate those words of wisdom, Tommy. So thanks everyone for joining the live stream. Thanks Uliana for joining us as well, all the way from Wellington. Really appreciate you jumping on the live stream as well. It's been a lot of fun, but yeah, time to get back to coding on Mage, I think, isn't it, Kirk and Tommy? All right, well, we'll finish up the live stream here, but really appreciate your time in joining us today, and thanks so much, and chat soon. Bye.